Toledo Rocket football season and perhaps the Toledo Rocket football program at a crossroads. Mike Robinson from the Rocket Radio Network joins us now. And Mike Rob, thanks for spending some time with us.
Thanks for having me always. Enjoy it.
Before we get into the negatives, let's talk a little bit about the positives out of that loss to Colorado State. Defense did not allow a touchdown in that game. The only score from Colorado State for a touchdown was on a punt return, so it was special teams that gave it up. So the defense, which looked so good against Notre Dame, a solid game, but perhaps on the field a little bit too long, and they did give up the 5 field goals.
Yeah, and for the defense, they did the best that they could. You look at the time of possession. Colorado State had the ball for 31 minutes. Toledo had it for 29, so that was pretty even. But when you have your defense on the field for such a while, it was hard for them to get off on third downs. And then also when the offense goes 3 and out so much, you really can't get a rhythm on defense. They did the best they could. And again, Terrence Taylor, a second week in a row where he stepped up, had a big night. Max and Hook made a lot of plays, but there's just not enough plays made on the offensive side to help the defense in this case.
And offensively, the Rockets just struggled. It seemed like as if Colorado State really controlled that line of scrimmage. And as you alluded to, too many 3 and outs, no rhythm established offensively. And that's why you get such a low-scoring output from the Rockets, something we rarely see at home.
Yeah, and you talk about low-scoring affairs. The last time the Rockets haven't scored a touchdown was in 2017 versus Appalachian State in the bowl game. So it's been a while, and the last time they did it in a regular season was in 2013 versus Florida. So it's been a while since the Rocket hasn't scored a touchdown. Definitely a low light here for the football program, and something that they can lay their head on is that the special teams unit is getting work. One thing we do know is Thomas Cluckey from Clay High School right here locally in Toledo, he has stepped up in a big way, getting points on the board at Notre Dame and here back at home. So that's the one thing that you can count on is that your kicking game is solid. And in the MAC, you know that MACtion goes crazy. So it's important to make sure your special teams are solid. And we also know about Bailey Flint, NFL-style punter. He went head-to-head with Stonehouse. This was a big-time punting game. So if you were into special teams today, into the special teams that game, you got something to see. 2 NFL punters that night.
And I think the disheartening thing about this loss to Colorado State, they played so well against Notre Dame, and everybody was talking all week long about, okay, we got to prepare for the emotional letdown because it's just Colorado State, and yet we had that emotional letdown. The team did not look like they were prepared for the Rams, despite the fact that all week they were told, you've got to prepare for the Rams. We saw these guys 2 years ago out there in Fort Collins. We know how tough they are, yet they come out and play flat.
Yeah, absolutely. I was there at Fort Collins. It was a very physical game. The third quarter was back and forth. And if you were there, you knew this game wasn't a chip shot. And the one thing that I liked about this football team is that they came out here and they gave their shots. It just wasn't enough. Offensively, the run game, there's some issues up front. The offensive line, they had some troubles. They rotated guys in and out. I'm not sure if it was due to injury, but they got to find some continuity, maybe bring in an extra tight end. That's something that you saw Colorado State do. You saw Notre Dame do it as well. Bring the extra tight end to help that run game get going. We know Koback can have electric nights. Last time versus Colorado State, he had his single season record breaking with 228 yards. Last night he didn't do much of that. So the offensive line's got to figure it out. They got to find a way to get the ball in Koback hand outside. They like to run a lot inside, but they got to get the ball outside that tackle box so they can get some yards with Koback.
So the Rockets are 1-2. They open up Mid-American Conference play on Saturday on the road, taking on Ball State. And the Cardinals, similar to the Rockets, they have struggled at times this year. Their only win coming against an FCS opponent, and they did not look good at all against Wyoming this past weekend. So both Ball State and Toledo looking to redeem themselves as they go head-to-head, and these were 2 of the teams we expected to contend for the MAC West title.
And again, alluding to out of conference and you bring it to conference, down in Muncie, it's going to be tough for the Rockets. Prior to the past 2 seasons, the Rockets was on a 5-game win streak versus Ball State. And then they had the epic letdown, a couple of years in a row. And last year they had an opportunity to go to the MAC championship, but a late loss to that football team. So this is going to be a charged up game. Drew Plitt, the quarterback from Loveland, Ohio, he is going to come out here ready to go. They had a nice scheme using a running back at quarterback last time, using that and understanding, hey, that's an extra guy in the box. So maybe Toledo take a trick out of their book and understand, hey, running the ball is important, and we know Ball State likes to do it. So they got to be thick up front. You got to have Jones and Desjuan Johnson and company. They got to really stop it and seal the edge. Hines have to have a big game this week if the Rockets want to stay the course.
One of the things that hurt Ball State against Wyoming was turnovers. If UT can force some turnovers, that's a great way to get some momentum, get some confidence going back for that Rocket defense, which has done such a good job of forcing turnovers and playing tough all season long.
Yeah, absolutely. You saw McDonald with the pick six versus Notre Dame, and that's what this defense is about. Womack is going to have a big game, and you're talking about turnovers. He went toe-to-toe with the tight end McBride last week, and I saw him run right down the sideline and have a nice deflection right there. He's not afraid of anybody, and the Rockets understand they're going to get tried. You can expect them to play a little bit more man-to-man, load the box up a little bit because they trust their cornerbacks. This is a very good unit in the second half of this defense, and they can make those plays. Again, this is a football team that is built off of those turnovers and thrive in the offense, but the offense have to get going to help this defense. It's only so much they can do by themselves.
As tough as that loss to Colorado State is for the Rockets, it's got to keep in mind they are undefeated in the MAC. MAC play begins on Saturday. So UT, their goal to get back to Detroit and win a MAC championship, still right out there in front of them. Mike Robinson, thank you for joining us.
Thanks for having me.